Okay, so hello everybody. I'm Tiina Ma. I represent Innovative Learning Environments Research Group. I work at the University of Jyväskylä at the Finnish Institute for Educational Research. So I have an educational background, and I'm presenting now the framework for co-designing environments conducive to learning and well-being. And this framework is meant for everybody designing learning environments. So it's meant for educators, architects, and anyone working with the learning environment design. In this presentation, you will have 5 different parts. We will start with the introduction to learning environment design. This framework is called Learning Environment Design Framework, LED framework. You can see the framework already there in the visualization. It has 5. It has like 3 balancing pairs: communality balanced with individuality. Then you can see the comfort balanced with health, conventionality balanced with novelty, or novelty with conventionality, and then there in the center there's concept of flexibility and functionality. So we will go through all these different dimensions of this framework. When we talk about the learning environments, we have to understand what we mean by it. And in this research that I've been conducting, we define learning environments as something, a combination of psychosocial learning environment and the technology-enhanced physical learning environment. Psychosocial learning environment refers to all types of interaction and action within the space. And there's always relation between what we are doing and our interaction and the physical space. And technology is nowadays an obvious part of the learning environment, so it's also considered there. And then you can see there in the center of this visualization, you can see physical, cognitive, emotional, and social, both well-being and competencies. So that's learning. In my research, in the research I represent, you can't really make it separate well-being and learning. They are very closely related, because you can't really learn if you are not feeling good. And on the other hand, you can learn about well-being. So they are very related. You will see that. And that's an important part of this framework that I'm presenting. As a background, there was a first framework version published in 2018. That was my doctoral dissertation. Then later on, we published, synthesis, a summarized version of this framework with Professor Teemu Leinonen, who actually was my opponent when I defended my thesis. So if you want to have a look on the framework, I would actually maybe recommend you to check this article with Teemu Leinonen. It's an open access article. So in this first framework version, I was focusing on learner perception. There was, of course, earlier research literature, but then in the empirical study part, I was involving learners from primary school, secondary school, and upper secondary school, actually both from Finland and from Spain. And there was a survey part, but then we organized co-design workshops with these learners. And so this first framework version really reflects the voices from learners of all ages. And this is how the first version looks like. Oops. This one. So here you can see the components I already presented earlier. And you can see also that there are like sub-themes for each main theme. For instance, communality has 4 different sub-themes: social relations, teaching, learning, interaction, sense of belonging, and safety. this is probably the most important part of this framework, because there are so many things related to commonalities that we have to consider, and the rest of the main themes include 2 different sub-themes. We will go through these sub-themes during this presentation. I will also share this presentation, these slides, so you can have a look on these details also later on. I was talking about the first version of the framework, so we also noticed that there's a need for updating this framework, well, mostly because it represented learner perspective. So now in our recent work, we've been focusing also on teachers' perspective. And then the COVID came, and we realized that there were some topics that we hadn't really included in this framework. All these possibilities for blended and hybrid learning, combining on-site and online teaching and learning. And there were also other topics we noticed, for instance, that we didn't really consider home as a learning environment, or safe distances also. So we updated this framework. As a method, we used expert review. We invited 10 Finnish experts reviewing this version 1 of the framework, and then they were proposing some changes. These experts represented all educational levels from early childhood to higher education, and they were researchers, architects, school directors, teachers, administrators, consultants, and so on. Actually, this updated version of the framework is only available in Finnish at the moment. You can see this publication and link to that publication. But if you're not able to read Finnish, you can see there a good list of references in English as well. Hopefully, we will have that publication in English very, very soon. Okay, so based on this LED framework, what we've been doing recently, we also developed this learning environment design survey. And now the survey is for teachers and learners alike. And it includes these 7 constructs, 16 sub-themes, and 89 characteristics. So it's quite a heavy set of different learning environment characteristics to be included. And in this survey includes questions related to how important the respondents feel these characteristics, how well they think they are considered in the actual learning environment they are working at their school. And then there are also open-ended questions to how they could be considered better. There you can see in Finnish language one example of, for instance, the teacher-led teaching, whether teachers or students consider it important, and whether the actual learning environments are supporting teacher-led teaching, whether they agree with this or not. Okay, so as I told you, we've been working now with this survey, and at the moment we have data from teachers who represent early childhood, primary and secondary education. So we are able to study the similarities and differences between educational levels. This has been very, very interesting. And then we have another set of data from high school teachers and students. So we can compare the similarities and differences between teachers and students' views. And then we also have one set with high school teachers before and after employing the new school. So we use it to see how these teachers experience the improvements when comparing the old school and the new school building. And based on all this work, we can say that we have a good set of research-based principles for designing learning environments that are conducive to learning and well-being. So this is the background of this framework. Here you can see more publications if you're interested. Okay, so now we've done the introduction part, and we are going to the part 2, balancing communality with individuality. I've selected some some pictures from schools around Finland. And this is maybe a typical picture of these communal spaces for both for formal and informal gatherings. Very typical nowadays to see these kind of chairs that can be used for multiple purposes. Okay, so in this communality dimension, the first sub-theme is teaching, learning, interaction. So this is focusing on teaching and learning. I was trying to summarize somehow what is important in each sub-theme. And here, based on research, we can really say that there should be versatile possibilities and spaces for collaboration of all types. There you can see that there's collaboration between the teachers. For instance, that you should have spaces that you can open up the classroom, the traditional classrooms, so that teachers can do coded teaching. And of course, there's collaboration with the other support personnel. One of the most important aspects is the learner collaboration. And then nowadays, at least in Finnish curriculum, we stress the importance of transversal project-based learning. So there should be spaces for doing these different projects. You can see here these characteristics listed in this part. There's also this teacher-led instruction and teacher visibility. So it means that there should be also spaces for teachers to give introduction. Students shouldn't be just put there somewhere to work without the guidance. So teacher's role is still very important. And there's also teacher visibility. It's related to all type of working that teachers should be able to, for instance, when the students go to work somewhere else than in this traditional classroom, teachers should be able to see where they are and go and not only to control them, but to help them and support them in their learning. I've selected here one picture from the Jyväskylä Teacher Training School. This is this one classroom or one space that I've been also involved in redesigning. And there you can see for instance, the elements of the chalkboard and combined with technology. And you can see how the furniture can be grouped so that it enables collaboration. And you can see many items related to that type of teaching learning interaction. This is the picture from that same classroom. You can see there like this traditional classroom. You can see this is an old school, so traditional typical school like they were earlier. And so in this classroom you can see that there is a group working area inside, and then you can go also to work outside the classroom. And then there are laboratory tables in the classroom for scientific experiments. So that's in the classroom for the safety reasons. And then this topic related to teacher visibility was organized so that there are class walls and these wide sliding doors. They are also class sliding doors. So when the students go to work outside the classroom, it's easy to see this. The teachers can see that they are there, and they can teachers can go and support them in their work. So this is one example of this different aspects in collaboration and teaching learning interaction. Okay, and then in this communality dimensions, there are also sub-themes related to social relations and sense of belonging. Maybe these are more well-being related aspects. You can see here a long list of different relations that should be considered. And when designing spaces, we should think, for instance, these informal spaces for teachers and learners to meet. It's about the peer relations for teachers, where they can have their cup of coffee and have their informal discussions. It's about the learners, where they can gather. It's about the teacher and other staff relations, learner-staff relations. Management relations are important. For instance, the way principal's office is organized. Like, is it far away from other places, or is it like easy to go and have a conversation with the principal? Then it also includes the aspects related to homeschool relations, when inviting parents to visit the school, and also wider community relations, meaning like different organizations, companies, whatever there are around the school. What is the connection, whether they can come to the school, or whether the students can easily go and visit the other stakeholders. And then there's this aspect of sense of belonging. What kind of spaces to create that there's this shared vision about us, and how to organize possibilities for involvement and self-expression, both for learners and teachers, and how to make these cozy home-like environments that everybody feels welcome and they feel that they belong to this community. Here you can see the picture is from Kaustinen Music-Based High School. I've also collaborated with that school a lot in when they were designing these new spaces. And this is a typical space for all types of gatherings, both formal and informal, to create this kind of sense of belonging and foster social relations. You can see the piano there, for instance, for self-expression. Actually, you can also see there some equipment for doing physical exercise. That's another theme in this framework. We can go later on. But this is the typical design of these stairs that can be used when having different events. And there's this area in the front can be organized, used as a stage. Okay, and then there was this fourth sub-theme under communality, and that's safety. And here, summarizing what this safety means, I put there a sentence that it's about confidential atmosphere and easy monitoring, but not necessarily class walls. And in our research lately, this topic of class walls has been very contradictory. If you design class walls, think at least how to put there some dimming curtains or something, that when you don't want open spaces, you can also have your privacy. So this safety aspect is related to both psychosocial safety and physical safety. And then there are topics such as how to create spaces that there's no behavioral disturbance. This includes, for instance, bullying. And this topic of transparency. Well, I already mentioned the class walls may be transparent, but they are not always the best solution if you need your privacy as well. In this picture, you can see this photo from Kaustinen Music-Based High School. This is actually from the student lounge. And you can see there are like class doors that open up to that stage or the stairs you saw earlier. And I was a little bit suspicious of like whether the students really like this kind of open space for them. But then when interviewing the students, they were quite happy with this space. They were saying that it's good that it's open, that they can see inside the space whether there is room to go, who is there, whether they can go there or not. So they weren't so much bothered. So it seems that this topic of openness is not so, well, how to say, that the teachers might be more suspicious with too much openness and transparency. But of course, each community is unique, and you should try to involve the teachers and students when designing transparent spaces. And most importantly, if you have lots of transparent spaces, you have to make sure that there are also those private spaces. We will go to private spaces rather soon, because actually the private spaces are more related to individuality. This topic, subtheme individualization, is more related to learning, also well-being, but it's more about how to create personalized learning, how to make studying and teaching personally relevant, how to consider the aspects with assessment. Well, it's related to personally relevant spaces for teaching and learning, and also like the types of assessment. For instance, that there are more spaces where teachers and students can discuss about their results. And then there's aspect related to self-regulated learning. This is maybe this concept that nowadays we talk a lot about, just sending students somewhere, learners somewhere to study by themselves. But we know that teachers need to support students, and this readiness for self-regulated learning is not so obvious. I've been working with the upper secondary school teachers and students, and also on that level, students need lots of support. And I would say also in a higher education. So you just shouldn't think that students are autonomous and they can work anywhere. But then earlier we discussed about the collaboration. And then the other aspect balancing collaboration is that we also design spaces and keep opportunities for individual work. Both teachers need their individual time, and students, they also value that possibility to work alone or with one person. And then there was this aspect of studying during the breaks. This is more maybe for upper secondary school, and so when there are breaks, there should be places to study. And as a summary for this sub-theme, I wrote that there should be possibilities and spaces for personalized, self-regulated, and individual work. Okay. And then there's one more sub-theme related to individuality. It's privacy and peacefulness. And here the main aspects are good soundproofing and private spaces. Noise disturbance is one of the biggest problems that teachers mention in our study. So good acoustic is the key for everything, whatever you design. Make sure that there's no noise, there's too much noise disturbance. Well, this is also related to no distractions, but these distractions can be, for instance, caused by the glass walls or too much openness. And there's also aspect of no disorganization, that there should be, for instance, storage spaces and spaces that are easy to keep in order. Here in this picture, this is from Valtteri Center for Learning and Consulting. You can see some solutions for creating these private spaces. Somebody was commenting me that this is not very peaceful when they use this red color, but actually this is a center for special needs, for instance, related to seeing and hearing. And it was commented that these color contrasts are really important in that space. So that's why the use of red color. Okay, so this was the part related to communality balanced with individuality.
Maybe I would like to add about the glass walls that when schools are nowadays quite like a big volumes, so they are deep and there is not daylight in the middle, so that's also like a question of getting daylight to the center of the building, not only like to have like a visibility between spaces. So and another thing which came to my mind when seeing all these furnishing solutions with walls, that somehow I think that, for example, when there is some kind of like little cabinet with a door. So then it raises a question, why couldn't you design a small room somewhere? So somehow I feel that they are a bit artificial, or they won't be moved so much. They are so big units that they are where they are, and then somehow they make a bit like a messy of the interior. I think some of those furniture with high walls behind.
Yeah, maybe for teachers, but I would say, well, depending on the age level of the students or learners, they need these hiding places and this kind of creativity and imaginary spaces, so they can be, how do you say, maya in English?
On the other hand, they might be quite nice, cozy places.
I think the teachers that have been participating in our study, they've been very pointing out that transparency as a value or as a way of working is not the same as physical transparency. So it's in our operational culture, transparency is important, and these psychosocial aspects of it, that there is trust and openness, but it's not the same as opening the spaces. We got lots of these comments that they don't even like that we put them together. So this is interesting from teachers' perspective, and this need for privacy that comes from learners and teachers alike should be respected. And because this is, in a way, providing privacy has to do with transparency as well, that we or this confidential, creating this confidential atmosphere that everybody can be, everybody has their moments to express their concerns and be in a private space. So this is like this finding this balance between this openness and then on the other hand closed spaces and areas. In this framework later on we will talk about the versatility and flexibility and aspects like that. So but I could already say that the key is somehow design spaces that allow all of these different aspects. So not only openness or closeness, but both in one way or another, because these are basic human needs. You need different ways of involving. And then the biggest thing in participatory design and co-design is that how do you actually, the whole communication, how do you make the design decisions and how do you communicate them? Why did we do that? How did we listen? Because sometimes it happens that we involve everybody and then we just do our own design. So this is the worst case. So you have to be very careful of explaining the results and the decisions you made, because there's a risk if you involve somebody and then you don't listen, it creates more frustration actually than any good outcomes. So it's a tricky part. It's not easy, but it's worth it. Okay, now we've been discussing the first part, balancing communality with individuality, and we're going now to the part 3, balancing comfort with health. I have to say already in this moment that comfort and health are not always the opposite. Comfortable spaces can be also healthy, but I chose to have this kind of two pairs, just reminding of the importance of you can't design just cozy, comfortable spaces without considering the health aspects. I can give you an example of cozy furniture, sofa groups, and so once the school can't be only about that cozy places to hang around, that there should be also ergonomical furniture and a great variety of ways of sitting down and feeling healthy. So, but starting with the comfort, what is very important based on our research is to have enough space. This comes from everybody, from teachers and students alike, and comfortable furniture. And the comfortable spaces can be, for instance, the soft places to sit down. It's also about making sure that there's enough seating space and enough table space that you can put all your equipment to the space. And nowadays we have technology, and then we have books and everything, so enough table space, but also that the number of tables and seats is enough. And with the seating space, there should be enough space so that the chairs are not put all together, so you can't actually move. And comfortable furniture and comfortable spaces, they refer to these kind of soft materials and cozy spaces to study and also spend one's free time. So this is about the physical ease in spaces. And then the other aspect was pleasantness. It's about aesthetic interior design, colors, luminosity, and presence of nature. When we talk about the luminosity, having enough light and presence of nature, I could say that everybody agrees that it's important to have light. And well, light is also a health aspect. It's not only about comfort. And then the presence of nature, it's a huge wish that comes from teachers and learners. So you should have access to nature outside and nature inside, plants inside the building. There can be also these kind of solutions, as in this picture, that there is a virtual northern lights. These examples are from the Muhos High School, for instance. So nature is important, and when you design the outdoor areas, how do you consider that there is enough plants and nature? But then other aspects, aesthetics and colors, that's a tricky thing, because when we ask about the colors, there's lots of opinions, and it's really difficult to design something that everybody would be happy with the colors. Because if you design too calm colors, the complaint is, oh, it looks like a hospital or dentist. I don't want to be in a dentist. And then if you put too much inspiring and motivating colors, it's not also good. So you have to find balance between the colors. As a researcher, when studying these opinions related to colors, I've started thinking that could we design spaces that we can change the color easily? For instance, the color changing lamps or lights, that we could vary the colors also based on different, when we are doing something that requires focusing, or when we are resting, and so on. So maybe that's something as a challenge for you to think how to design spaces that you can also adapt to the colors depending on what you do. So this is about the pleasantness. It's a difficult topic, and of course, if you involve the teachers and learners and the whole school community when designing the school, then you can maybe understand better their idea of the pleasantness. Okay, here you can see an example of this wide glass windows that open to the nature. You can see some green areas and trees outside, and that's also a solution for luminosity. We already discussed that light is really important, but then on the other hand, you have to have spaces where you can put these dimming curtains. For instance, in early childhood education, they need spaces where they have their nap time. We also need dark spaces for when we use technology for different presentations, and so it can't be too light. So again, it's a reminder of balancing these areas with lots of light with possibilities to have also darker areas. I think in my research, some students also, they wish for, older students, that they wish for dark spaces, that too much light is not nice. They want the black and dark spaces to feel cozy. Okay, so this was the comfort aspect. And now what health means in this framework. The first sub-theme is physical wellness, including indoor air aspects, ergonomics, possibilities for physical exercise. You can see there also on that list of learning environment characteristics, you can see quality of meals. This actually is also related to how to design the restaurant and the dining area, how to make it inviting. So it's not only about the quality of food, but the whole experience when you eat there. Indoor air quality, particularly here in Finland, it's a huge topic, really important one. And then this framework also includes this topic of not too hot or not too cold temperature. There are lots of, and this is also something quite subjective and difficult to design, because there are people that feel cold easily, and so maybe there's need for solutions such as blankets or something that people who feel cold can also feel comfortable. But this topic, basically how to make adjustable possibilities to change the temperature. Oftentimes you can't change the temperature for one classroom. It's the same in everywhere. So maybe there should be solutions for changing the temperature based on the group activity type or so on. Or maybe they are, maybe I'm not too aware of it, but the complaint is often that it's either too hot during the summertime or too cold during the winter. Those people who suffer from it, remember to complain about it. Okay, then there's the aspect of cleanliness and hygiene. Earlier I mentioned that we updated this framework based on the COVID pandemic, and earlier we didn't have this aspect. We thought it's kind of, we took it for granted. Of course, there's clean and hygienic, but then we realized that this should be considered, that there are enough places to wash hands, and we're sure there are other, if not pandemics, but other diseases coming. So we should really design spaces that respond to this kind of hygienic cleanliness needs. These healthcare possibilities means that there are spaces for instance, for nurses or the healthcare professionals within the school space, and that's easy access for learners and teachers alike who need this kind of services. Ergonomics we already discussed, for instance, the furniture, and ergonomics is an important topic because teachers, and for instance, when you go to the early childhood education, the size of the teachers and the learners is very different. So you have to design furniture and equipment that responds to different size of people. But it also happens, and in the secondary school, for instance, that there are big differences between the size of learners. They are still growing, and so normally adjustable solutions are good, because then you can just adjust the height of the table or your seat according to your physical needs. And then the physical exercise, it's really important that there are like these official spaces outside and inside for physical exercises. But nowadays, in the design, one should also consider how to put equipment for doing physical exercise in different spaces. That there can be, you saw the example of having this equipment in the main hall, that you can just easily start doing some physical exercise when having your break. So this is important to pay attention, that somehow the school environment invites to move and do physical exercise. Okay, and then the other sub-theme related to health is no overload. And this has been a huge topic, and in our recent studies, it comes both from teachers and from learners that there should be more, well, it's not only spaces, but also for possibilities and moments to rest. So there should be spaces that one can really have a break and disconnect. When I visit schools, I always say I inspect the teacher staff room, how it's designed, whether there are spaces for this, well, of course, for this communal aspects between teachers, but also spaces for having a nice break, even a nap. Teachers often, also students, they wish this kind of a chairs for having a massage or things like that when they have the break time. And so there's this rest aspect, but there's also like active leisure time. There in the picture, you can see this typical wish that students, particularly students, have, that there are so like a ping pong table or billiard or something when they have they breaks and leisure time, that they can do something active, not only sport but also other games and possibilities for leisure time. And this is also very much related to these good outdoor activity areas. So not only doing sport, but also to I don't know, to have a picnic there or have some table groups that you can spend nice leisure time outdoors. Okay, so this was the aspects of how to balance comfort with health. We can have a break now.
For example, at our department, there is a doctoral researcher, Saara Pyykkö, who is specialized in colors of environments, and there is much research on those, and I'm not so aware of all the results, but in general, those like green or blue are usually seen as like a calmful colors.
Yeah, probably the nature elements, that's what I know from like the nature colors, that like calming colors are like light and maybe related to nature, and the and green colors might be also like support concentration, and yes, so like green and bluish, rather light colors are for that. And like the reason why the chalkboard is green or brown is also that it's kind of supports the focusing, and then again, like yellowish and bright colors are more for like for inspiration and inspirational purposes. But it's one topic that definitely you can have a research on that, like you can have your doctoral dissertation on the school colors, and I think there should be more studies like from that more objective color. But it is a subjective, it's always related to taste. There's always, like, no matter how we say, okay, green colors are like that, but then there's also like kind of fashion, different periods. And so it's really, that's why I would say the key is if you can design something that you can change the colors easily, then yeah, because there's always a group that complains the colors, like, why these colors?
Yeah. Then the colors of material, for example, wood is always thought that it's quite like making like a very comfort atmosphere. When, for example, yesterday was the prize giving ceremonies of Architecture Finlandia prize, and it was given to a daycare center in Tuusula, which is built out of wood and CLT elements, and there are in the interior there are all the walls are wooden and the floors are wooden and the furniture were wooden, and it looked I have not been there, but it looked very nice and bright and comfortable.
Yeah, probably if you think of the nature is inspiration from the nature, it's kind of safe to use the nature elements in the color design. You're right. Okay, maybe we should move on because I have another thing to do. So let's.
One notion. I when you spoke about the rest, then I remember that I had a master thesis student from China, and she designed a school, and there was like a special rooms for rest, so that students could lie and take a nap at school. So maybe our Chinese students know more about that. That is it a typical that there is like a sleeping spaces at school too?
I think in some Asian cultures, like also at the office, and they develop this habit, and they have this space to have a quick nap and then continue. So maybe we could learn from there. You're right. Okay, so now we have the final balancing pairs, how to balance novelty with conventionality. This is an aspect that let's start with the novelty. That comes from the research that it's really important that there are some novel tools and inspirational aspects to have this novelty effect. And when we talk about the novelty, well, technology is still kind of novelty, at least for some generations, but not for our youngsters anymore. But anyway, this is like the big thing, how to consider the use of technology. There is in the infrastructure, there is a movable technology, but there are also like different equipment in different spaces that is stable. Here in the picture, you can see, for instance, that the nowadays students tend to have the technology combined with traditional books and notebooks, and so you should have this example is maybe shows that the table space is really important, because if you have these tiny tables like in this picture, there's not much space to put everything. Anyway, then there's in this topic of novel tools, we also added educational design elements, and this is something we invite you to design learning environments that the whole school somehow is a tool for learning. There you can see some typical design is to use stairs somehow. Like in this picture, you can see that there are stairs for learning mathematics, and then the other stairs are for learning history. And then you can see the solar system on the ceiling. But there are endless possibilities for somehow including educational design elements to the space design. And this is something that could also be discussed with teachers. If you involve teachers, they have their ideas depending on the subject they are teaching, what kind of elements and teachers in our research, we noticed that they would like to often decorate somehow their spaces with the elements that they are related to the topics of teaching. This is particularly in the secondary school where there are subject teachers. Okay. And then the novel spaces. Here we have these aspects of having informal learning environments opposed to formal, let's say, classroom type of spaces. Informal learning environments can be also outside the school or so, that basically nowadays we think we can learn everywhere. And then the outdoor learning, it's not so novel. There has been these cases of these outdoor schools also in the history, but somehow this aspect of going outdoors to study it hasn't been the mainstream. So that's why we put it to the novel spaces, like how to make sure that, well, in Finland it's also a little bit difficult because of the climate, that we can't be outside all the time. But when the summer comes and when the good weather comes, how can we abandon the indoors and go and study outside? Novel design refers to all types of not so conventional elements at schools. And then there's this how to make spaces that are inspiring and motivating. Actually, the feedback from our teachers is that, which is true, that something inspiring and motivating and novel at the moment is not novel in 10 or 20 years anymore. So you should be also balanced with when putting lots of novelty into the spaces. And then you can see there this learning environment characteristic related to open learning environments. We already discussed this transparency, and this open learning environments has been a huge topic in Finland. Lots of critical comments. And when asking the importance of them from teachers, in early childhood education, teachers seem to be more positive about it. There is more this tradition of having a wide open space with different play corners. But then when you go to primary school or secondary school, the opinions are quite negative about it, and teachers worry about, basically the biggest worry is the acoustics and the noise and the distractions. But actually, when asking from the students about the open learning environments, they are not so negative. So basically it seems that teachers see it as a very challenging. And here later on, we can also discuss how if we create these open learning environments, teachers might need this support, how to use them and how to design the use of spaces so that there's not so much distractions or troubles. So let's say our research shows that we shouldn't be like abandon completely the open learning environments, but they require careful design when designing them and when using them. And there should be these closed spaces as well. Okay, so this was the novelty aspect. And now what comes to conventional tools, maybe you saw it already, and I mentioned it already, that the combination of use of books and other traditional materials is the key. That's opinion that comes both from the teachers and students. And it's really sad if paper books are abandoned because digital books are more economic. It shouldn't be the criteria. Students and teachers feel many of them, they learn better when using traditional materials. So there should be space for libraries and books and so on, all these materials. This is a very important finding in our research that we want to highlight, that don't abandon everything old in the design. And then also these conventional spaces, room for traditional school design. Everything what is old is not necessarily bad. It's about this traditional classroom types. They have this space. They should, and conventional design like these chalkboards. This is a typical thing whether teachers want chalkboards or not, and normally they do. And this kind of teacher-led teaching and learning moments. Also, non-formal learning refers to this type of like language learning or music classes or library spaces or museum spaces. How to use them in support of learning. They continue being important. There's also this aspect of sustainable design in this category. It could be somewhere else, but the reason why it's here, it's kind of a reminder of, for instance, respecting if there are buildings that can be renovated instead of creating a new building. It's a ecological aspect, and so how to save existing spaces, buildings, how to also recycle and for instance with the furniture. Our research shows that there are lots of complaints that the new furniture can be much worse, that it's not sustainable in comparison to old wooden furniture that can be also renovated or fixed. So this is a huge, I'm really happy that I have this sustainability aspect in this framework, reminding of these aspects. And at best, school can be an example of sustainability, as we've seen in some cases, that you can learn about sustainability when going to your school. Okay, so this was the conventionality balanced with novelty. Important to keep both of them, not to abandon what is old, but also have some innovative aspects that inspire. Yeah, like, well, I talk about maybe the furniture, like this old-fashioned school furniture can be still of good use. Sometimes how do you say, the tables for kids that open up and you have your own storage space. This is the old-fashioned typical spaces that they are actually quite sustainable as well. Wooden tables with space for each kid to put their books and other equipment. And then there's a lot of traditional materials needed for art and studying, like handicrafts, and so lots of this physical material. And when we have all these materials, we should have great storage spaces. For instance, that we have these physical elements at school. So, and what else? And there is a moment that for teacher-led teaching that you should have a space that teacher is teaching in the front, maybe the teacher desk there in the front. It's not a completely bad idea that teacher have their own desk and the chalkboard, and you can even organize the tables on rows, typical. Yes. But then again, the requirement is that you should be able to also reorganize the space for some other possibilities. Yeah, we'll discuss these nature elements, like wood, and which is kind of safe. But of course, there's a question of like whether wood is actually sustainable, like from the ecological perspective of not using too much wood. I am not an expert for that, but like like any material is that it's somehow sustainable. Because and this experience of that sometimes the new furniture or what is new is not very long lasting. So in that sense, maybe we should go back in time and check what were the materials used in old times that are still lasting. Maybe I don't have any more examples at this moment, but hopefully you got the point. And go and talk to teachers that have a long experience in working at school, so that they might have some ideas. Color design from the perspective of people with these special needs. So and actually we have now one project that we are evaluating the school spaces from the accessibility perspective, from the inclusion perspective. And so these are very important concerns, and we're trying to develop this kind of tool for paying more attention on the inclusivity aspects and special needs. Thanks, Sophia, for your comments. Okay, so now we've had an introduction to the LED framework, and we've been discussing all these three pairs of balancing: communality with individuality, comfort with health, novelty with conventionality. And now we go into the final part, which is flexibility and functionality. I would say last but not least, because also in this visualization you see it's put there in the center, highlighting that it's kind of the key when you design something, when you find the balance between different elements, that things work, they are functional, and there's flexibility that depending on different needs and different situations and different future generation or whatever, you can modify, you can change some elements at school. Okay, so when starting with the flexibility and functionality, we divided this into two sub-themes. The first one is the versatility. And this is the key, I would say, everywhere. This is my favorite characteristic based on research, not just my own opinion, but the more variety you have, the better. So it's not about having open space or closed space, but to have all of them, all these possibilities. More possibilities, the better. That goes to methods and tools and spaces, and so you can have lots of different kind of spaces, or then you can design spaces that modify and adapt to different uses. I would say that this adaptability aspect is challenging. We got lots of feedback in our research from that the spaces are theoretically theoretically easy to add, or you can adapt them, but that they are not easy to adapt in everyday use. I'm not an expert of this vocabulary. Maybe you can check it in our architectural language how it's used, but basically there is this possibility to change this everyday basis, open the wall, close the wall, take the furniture, reorganize the furniture in an easy and quick manner. And then there are some changes in the long run that you can do, not every day, but you can still adapt, create different spaces. And then there's this long-term modifiability, or whatever is the word, meaning that, for instance, the school can be used as a place for elderly people in the long run. So there are different, and for teachers and students alike, the most important aspect is that the spaces are actually, you can adapt them during the day or once in a school term or whatsoever. And for instance, sometimes there are those doors or that you can open, but they are so difficult to open that teachers can't do it by themselves. So they require help. So it's not very handy. In that sense, if you have lots of different spaces without the need of modifying, it might be an easier solution. This is just a reflection. Somehow, if you make these multi-purpose spaces, you should really pay on attention how to modify them easily. Or it's also a matter of time. When do teachers go and reorganize everything? They don't have necessarily that time in their schedule to go. Or how do you do it with students? So it's a huge challenge. So this is the versatility and adaptability, flexibility, modifiability aspect that are very, very important in learning environment design. And then finally, ease of use. Well, actually, I discussed about it already. Whatever you have, it should be somehow functional, no matter whether it's technology or spaces, that it's easy to use, kind of intuitive. Here you have the functionality and practicality and accessibility. We already have discussed a little bit of that. Inclusive spaces and accessibility, ease of movement, wayfinding, things like that. Technological support, obviously, that there are personnel for supporting when there's need. Infrastructure, here in this picture from Muhos, you can see, for instance, the huge need, and I don't know why is it always that there aren't enough of places to put your cables to charge your equipment. There's this one solution is that they are there hang from the ceiling. I don't know if it's so beautiful aesthetic, but it's rather functional and practical, so that you can really charge your equipment. And then here we have also this user support of physical spaces, and this is a huge thing that I've been promoting with my colleagues recently, and our research shows that it has been neglected. Basically, you should have it somehow already in the budget when building a new school, that the teachers and other users would be trained how to use novel spaces. If you have open spaces, open space is not a problem, but if you don't know how to use it properly, that's a problem. So teachers and other users, they need support in how to use the design and what is the pedagogical purpose and for different types of spaces. So if this is neglected, there's a huge risk that the spaces are not actually used as intended. But this is a matter we really hope that in the future there would be more consideration of that when creating, for instance, a budget for building new schools. Okay, so now we came to the end of this presentation of this framework. We covered the introduction and all these different elements. And as I mentioned, I will share you the slides if you want to go and check these details again when designing the learning environments, no matter whether it's from the educational perspective or from architectural or technological or whatever is the perspective. Many thanks for listening.